In early 1999, I first set foot in Germany with two friends of mine. We were amazed by everything we saw in the West. When it was time to return, one of my friends bought a cheap Opel, and as people often did back then, we decided to drive it ourselves as far as Moscow and have it shipped from there. We crossed the border through the Grodno checkpoint in Belarus. At that time, it was a fairly decent place compared with Russia. The bribes they asked for were lower, and things were a little easier. From there, we kept driving until we reached the capital, Minsk. We stayed briefly with a Russian acquaintance, then found a cheap hotel and settled in to rest. Soon after, our car developed a small mechanical problem, so we took it to a nearby repair shop to have it fixed. While we sat there watching the mechanics work, a huge Kraz truck pulled in. Its driver climbed down and began looking at our car with great interest. He was a massive man, exactly the kind of person you would expect to be driving a Kraz. In those days, Western cars were still rare in Belarus. After a while, the man came over and started a conversation. When he heard that we were from Mongolia, he became very interested and asked where we were staying. Then he said, "I have something I would like to talk to you about." We told him the name of our hotel. That evening, back at the hotel, we talked among ourselves. Was it really a good idea to tell that Russian man where we're staying? We wondered, feeling a little suspicious. Our friend, who spoke Russian well, said, "He seemed all right. He looked like a decent man." So we let it go and soon forgot about it. After dinner, just as we were getting ready to sleep, there was a knock at the door. We opened it, and there stood the same giant Russian man, holding a bag. "May I come in?" he asked. We invited him inside. He entered, greeted us in the Russian way, and began taking things out of his bag. A bottle of vodka and various foods to go with it. He laid everything out on the table, invited us to sit down, opened the bottle, and poured us a drink. We thanked him, drank what he offered, and tasted the food. They were delicious Russian snacks. It was one of those moments when, as the saying goes, there is no need to name everything and no need to pretend modesty. Then he began to tell us a story from his childhood. "I was born in a village not far from Minsk. Our village was not very big and not very rich either, just an ordinary village. The war had devastated it badly, and life was still very hard afterward. I was only a small boy when the war ended, and our family was very poor. One day, an announcement came from the village council saying that horses returning from the front were being distributed among the villagers, and people should come and choose one. My father went to get a horse, but on the way, as fate would have it, he ran into some acquaintances, and they began drinking together. My poor father was fond of a drink. So, rather unsteady and already tipsy, he reached the council office late in the evening. By then, all the horses had already been taken. Only one small black horse remained. The military officer who had brought the horses was sorting through his papers and preparing to leave. When he saw my father, he said, "Well, this is the horse you'll have to take." My father became annoyed and said, "You call this little short black thing a horse? Forget it. I don't want it." But the officer replied, "This is a Mongolian horse, a steed that reached Berlin. You will not regret taking him." My father thought for a moment. Then he realized that if he returned home empty-handed, my mother would surely scold him. So he took the horse. From that day on, that Mongolian horse became an honored member of our family. My father named him Mongol. Our Mongol was incredibly strong. In spring, when it was time to plow the fields, he could pull the plow alone and finish our whole plot by himself. Before that, it had taken us two large horses changed out in turns to plow the same land, and even those big horses tired quickly. But Mongol would finish the work as if it were nothing. He even plowed the neighboring fields for pay. He seemed never to know fatigue, and my father earned quite a bit of money hiring him out to plow other people's land. Mongol was also extraordinary at carrying loads. He would pull a cart piled high with grain as though it weighed nothing, even though such a load normally required two horses. He hated fences and enclosures. He would break right through and go wherever he pleased. He hated fences and enclosures. He would break right through and go wherever he pleased. If he was put in a stable with other big horses, he would fight and cause chaos. He loved roaming freely on his own. He never mixed with Russian horses and always kept to himself. He would let no one except my father come near him. Only my father could ride him. He would not allow anyone else onto his back. My father used to make bets with the men of the village, asking, "How long do you think you can stay on Mongol's back?" Not one of them could hold on. My father won a great deal that way. In winter, Mongol would simply head into the hills. He needed no feed, no oats, nothing. Meanwhile, the other villagers spent large sums feeding their heavy horses. Our area had many wolves. Once, when my father went into the mountains to fetch Mongol, he found a young wolf lying there with its skull smashed open. That was Mongol's doing. So Mongol became a famous horse, admired and respected by everyone. In winter, he would come striding through the village, covered in frost, shaggy and wild-looking, and people would say, "Look, there goes Mongol." Children would run out just to see him. My father loved Mongol dearly. After he came to us, our life improved, and we eventually became counted among the prosperous families in the village. My mother used to say, "This little black horse was sent by God to bless our lives." When my father was drunk, he would say, "How I wish I could thank the people who raised such a horse. They must be remarkable people. But perhaps I won't be able to do it in my lifetime. Children, you must pass on my gratitude in my place." Later, I left the village to attend school. My father harnessed Mongol to the cart and drove me to the city himself. Many years passed. I grew up and came to live in Minsk. Then one day, a letter arrived from my father. Our Mongol had died. In his old age, the poor thing had stayed mostly in the stable. They found him there, dead, still standing. My father grieved deeply. He drank heavily. And not long afterward, he too passed away. He must have gone after his Mongol. When he finished, the giant Russian man fell silent. Then he stood up, opened the inside of his coat, and took out an old photograph. In it was an elderly man standing beside a small black horse. "This is the only photograph of my father that remains," he said. "Well then, I have fulfilled my father's last wish. I have met a Mongolian, and I have told him about the horse. You Mongolians seem to be like our Mongol himself. Small in build, perhaps, but truly formidable. After all, here you are, driving an old car all the way from Germany." Then he raised his glass and said, "To the Mongolian horse and to the heroic people who raised him." And we drank.